I remember the exact moment it hit me, and I hate how long it took. Not because it was dramatic, not because something big happened, but because nothing happened. That was the problem. I was standing in my kitchen that evening, my phone face up on the counter, screen lighting up every few minutes. And every single time, it wasn't him. 3 days. 3 full days after a disagreement that honestly wasn't even that serious. And the wild part? If you had asked me back then, I would have told you, at least he's not toxic. At least he doesn't shout. That's how I used to measure peace. No noise, no drama, no chaos. Just silence. But that night, that silence felt like punishment. Let me take you back a little. The argument started over something small. I can't even remember the exact words now, but I remember how it made me feel. Dismissed. I had said something simple. I think it was along the lines of, hey, when you cancel plans last minute like that, it actually affects me. Nothing aggressive, no attitude, just honest. And instead of responding, he just shut down. Like someone switched him off. You know that kind of silence where the energy in the room just drops? That's exactly what happened. At first, I tried to smooth it over. I laughed it off. I said, it's fine, don't worry about it. Even though it wasn't fine. Because I didn't want things to get tense. That word alone. I used to avoid it like my life depended on it. When he left that day, there was no resolution. No, we'll talk later. No, I hear you. Just distance. And somehow, I convinced myself that was normal. The first night, I didn't think too much of it. I told myself, he just needs time. I even admired it a little, if I'm being honest. I thought, wow, he's not reactive. He's calm. Meanwhile, I was the one replaying the conversation in my head while brushing my teeth, while lying in bed, while trying to sleep. But still, I defended him. By the second day, something shifted. I sent a message. Not confrontational, not emotional. Just, hey, are we okay? You would think that's a normal question, right? Do you know what I got? Nothing. Not even a scene. That's when the overthinking really started. I started editing myself in my head. Maybe I sounded too serious. Maybe I should have joked about it. Maybe I made it bigger than it was. And here's the thing that still bothers me when I think about it. I wasn't asking, why is he ignoring me? I was asking, what did I do wrong? Now this is the part I need you to really hear, because it took me a long time to understand it. Silence like that doesn't just sit there quietly. It does something to you. It makes you shrink without even noticing. You start becoming softer, smaller, more careful. You start choosing your words like you're walking on glass. And the worst part? You think you're being mature. By the third day, I was exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. I had carried an entire conversation in my head by myself. I had defended him, blamed myself, minimized my feelings, and tried to fix something that hadn't even been acknowledged. Alone. That evening, that's the one I'll never forget. I had just gotten home. I dropped my bag, kicked off my heels, and stood there for a moment. In silence. Real silence. And it felt heavy. Not peaceful, not calm. Heavy. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and just leaned against the counter. My phone was right there. Still, nothing. And I remember saying out loud, this doesn't feel right. Not angry, not dramatic, just honest. That was the first time I stopped romanticizing his silence. Because up until that point, I had been calling it space. I had been telling myself, he just processes differently. I had been making it sound healthy. But in that moment, I asked myself a very simple question. If I did this to someone, would I call it maturity? And the answer was immediate. No, I wouldn't. I would know exactly what I was doing. I would know that I was avoiding, that I was withholding, that I was letting the other person sit in confusion. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't peace. This wasn't emotional intelligence. This was control. Not loud, obvious control. Quiet control. The kind that makes you question yourself instead of questioning the situation. Wait, I haven't told you the most important part yet. Because the real shift didn't happen that night. That night was just the awakening. The real shift came the next time it happened. And trust me, it happened again. Another disagreement. Different topic. Same pattern. He went quiet. But this time, something in me didn't panic. I noticed it. I felt the discomfort, yes. That urge to reach out, to fix it, to say, hey, let's not drag this. It was there. But I didn't move. I didn't text. I didn't apologize. I didn't explain myself again. And let me tell you, that was not easy. It felt unnatural at first, because I was used to being the one who restored peace, or at least what I thought was peace. But as the hours passed, something interesting happened. I started feeling clear. Not anxious, not confused, just clear. For the first time, I wasn't focused on his silence. I was focused on how it made me feel. And how it made me feel was simple. Unseen. Unheard. Unimportant. And once you name something honestly like that, it's very hard to ignore it. I realized something in that moment that changed how I see relationships completely. Communication is not a luxury. It's not something you earn by behaving perfectly. It's the bare minimum. If someone can go days without acknowledging you after a disagreement, that is information. Not mystery, not complexity, information. And I had to ask myself a question I had been avoiding. Is this the kind of emotional experience I want long term? Not, is he a good person? Not, do we have good moments? But this specific pattern, this silence, this feeling. And my answer was no. Quietly, clearly. No. I didn't leave in anger. There was no big speech, no dramatic ending. Just a decision. I stopped trying to build something with someone who disappears when things get real. Looking back now, I think what hurts the most isn't even the silence itself. It's how long I convinced myself it was okay. How I called it maturity. How I adjusted myself to fit into it. How I ignored the way my body felt every single time it happened. So, if you're listening to this and you've ever been in that kind of silence, the kind where you're checking your phone, rereading conversations, wondering what you did wrong, pause for a second and ask yourself one honest question. Do I feel safe here? Or do I feel controlled? Because peace doesn't make you anxious, and maturity doesn't leave you guessing. If this spoke to you, I really want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced this kind of silence? What did it teach you about yourself? Share it in the comments. Someone else might be sitting in that same confusion right now, and your story could help them see clearly. And if you want more conversations like this, real, honest, and a little uncomfortable sometimes, go ahead and subscribe to GistOver Cooking. This is a space where we don't just talk about life, we understand it better. I'll see you in the next one.